Hey everyone, higher running coach and Hoka athlete Sage Canaday here with another training talk. I don't even know what episode this is, I'll put it there, but we're going to talk about zone 3 training. Yes, I'll dive into it. I did want to address the top voted comment on my other training talk about high altitude training. Tips for runners over maybe the age of 50. We'll just say runners older than me. Of course, Sandy and I have coached a lot of athletes in their 40s, 50s, 60s. The general thing with getting older is sometimes you need slightly more protein requirement. I'm never worried about protein as a plant-based athlete, but there could be shifts in diet, metabolism, and then of course varying your training with more resistance or lightweight training, strength training, because of the impact force and trying to keep our hormone levels up like testosterone. Things change with age, so you can't always do the reckless speed and intensity and volume that you might get away with if you were in your 20s. I've known that even scaling back as I get older in the decades, in my late 30s now, but generally you don't want to pull a muscle. You need a little bit more time sometimes to warm up and do all those little things. But diving in, zone 3 training, we'll define it. We define it actually on our pace intensity spectrum at higherrunning.com. It's a free download. Check it out in the link below. I'll also put it up as a graphic in this video. I've got my good friend, positivity coach, Pacer here. Pacer, can you sit up so people could see you? Maybe she'll sit up. But anyway, that's at higherrunning.com, our coaching website. But zone 3 is what we define in a 5 pace or 5 intensity zone spectrum, right? So we have zone 1, zone 2. We're talking about, easy conversational pace. Zone 1's more actually like recovery jog pace, right? So we're talking about, super easy, relaxed, could even be walking for a lot of people. Whereas zone 2, the bulk of our training, the volume training, the whole hot topic training, aerobic base building, as a lot of zone 2 training, that's still conversational pace as well, right? Right, Pacer? That's still conversational pace as well. So we're going up another notch. Ow, that really hurt, Pacer. And it shouldn't hurt. It shouldn't hurt. But conversational pace, it could be 75%, 70% of your max heart rate. Again, a lot of people don't know maybe they're 100% max heart rate, but you could breathe pretty easily. It's more like ultra running pace. Whereas when we get into zone 3, and this is the zone we're focusing on in this training talk, zone 3 training, we are talking about what I call a significant workout level, right? It's you have to think about increasing the pace. And what we've defined it on our pace intensity spectrum is actually 3-hour race pace. So if you're a 3-hour marathoner, you're shooting for a 3 flat time, very good time, qualifies you for Boston in most age categories on most years. It's a very good marathon time. A lot of people, lifelong dream to qualify for Boston or crack 3 hours. So if you haven't run a marathon or you're not quite in the 3 flat range or sub 3-hour marathon range, maybe it's a slightly different pace, but the theoretical pace you could hold for 3 hours in an all-out race effort. Now, that's an inflection point, and if we graft these things out with our increase in pace and how we feel subjectively but also objectively with things like our breathing rate, for example, ventilatory threshold, we see this as an inflection point. Instead of being able to easily talk and carry on a long conversation, maybe you're actually only stringing together a few sentences at a time, but you could still talk whole sentences. So it's not so intense. It's not LT2 or the true lactate threshold. It's not tempo intensity. It's what we call up tempo or zone 3. Some people might say the aerobic threshold, steady state. These are all similar terms. What do you think, Pacer? But there's an inflection point with your breathing. Now, this could also be construed with LT1 or the first threshold, where there's also an inflection point with what we call your lactate levels in your blood, which you have to pick yourself. I've never done it yet with a lactate meter, and there's a slight inflection with the lactate values. Oh, Pacer, there's a ball under the couch, and Pacer wants to get it. You're going to have to wait for that. Be patient. There's a slight inflection point with the lactate values. You don't have to worry about that. Mainly, you're going to notice it with your breathing and picking up the pace a bit, right? It's not a true easy day pace. And this is where people get into trouble with, forcing their easy days, going too hard on their easy days. You're increasing the pace way too much. Just a minute, I gotta get the ball for Pacer. Pacer, what do we got here? All right, Pacer, come on, get your ball. Pacer got her ball now, she's happy. So where was I? Oh yeah, so you're out. It's a up tempo workout. We do this a lot in our higher running training plans. You could check them out again on our website, business plug. But it could be a pickup where you're doing what we call a long up tempo effort, long steady state effort. Feel good pace is what my college coach used to call it, because it's not 100% effort. It's maybe only slightly above 78%, 80% max heart rate, going up to about 85% max heart rate if you go with heart rate values. But again, 3-hour race pace. You could do that in a workout for 30, 40, 50 minutes at a time, right? And a lot of times these are progression runs, they're negative splits where you're speeding up through a range of this aerobic pace spectrum. So it's a very great way to accumulate volume at this threshold level, aerobic threshold, ventilatory threshold, LT1, so to speak, and get used to maybe what might be your future marathon race pace if you're targeting that 3-hour mark, but getting a high-end aerobic stimulus. And it's not something that you want to force every day or most days because of the impact force and the risk for injury. Otherwise, it's a great aerobic stimulus. And realize these zones, zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, they all kind of blend together in this spectrum. So you're getting the benefits, but you're trying to target that specific inflection point and keep good form and keep under control. You're not breathing so hard that you're accumulating a lot of lactic acid. That's more like going into VO2 max and super high intensity. But we're staying under zone 4, which would be tempo or lactate threshold. So we're not worrying about that. Zone 3 is the notch below that. Again, we call that up tempo at higher running. And it's this inflection point. And the benefit is this, is we could do a lot of our long runs are actually quality workouts where we tell people to do up-tempo miles or do a fartlek timed interval thing in the second half of a 20-mile long run, 32K long run, because it's such good marathon and ultra-marathon training. Especially, it could still help you 5K and 10K runners, half marathon runners as well though, because you're really stimulating the system to utilize oxygen very efficiently, and you're building specific running economy right around what could be your marathon race pace. So very beneficial intensity to train at, and an intensity that you could get in a lot of time and volume at, especially if you're starting out in a training cycle or you're getting ready to taper in a training cycle, or even if you're in the peak of a training cycle running high mileage. It doesn't beat you up too much. It's not like doing super high intensity intervals all the time. It's not even like doing true tempo run or lactate threshold, which I've talked about a lot. This is more LT1, aerobic threshold, ventilatory threshold, up tempo, feel good pace. So again, perceived effort on the perceived effort scale, maybe it's only a 6.5, 7 out of 10 RPE. Maybe it's 78 to 85% max heart rate. Again, 3-hour race pace. If you're going for a marathon, it's good to build endurance around this and build your stamina and get all those aerobic adaptations. So that's the skinny on zone 3 training. And again, hope you enjoy these training talks. Thanks to all the Patreon supporters for keeping this channel alive. Really appreciate all your support. Check out our training plans at highRunning.com. Thanks to title sponsor Hoka for keeping my running dreams alive. More updates on the Honolulu Marathon training, my next race in 5 weeks. Hope you're doing well, and stay tuned for more VO2 Max Productions.